Hello, everyone. My name is Courtney Pollock, and I'm the Customer Marketing Coordinator for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, Be an E-Commerce Master, presented by Seth Kuhn from SWK Technologies and Josh Fisher from Acumatica. Before we get started, let's go over some housekeeping items. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise to a minimum. However, throughout the webinar, you can submit any questions you have. If you'd like to submit a question, look for the questions section in your GoToWebinar panel, and we'll answer all questions at the end of the presentation. We're also recording this presentation, and it will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees, as well as those who registered but were unable to attend. We're also going to run a couple polls throughout this presentation, and we'd appreciate your participation. We'd like to know a little bit about you and where you're at in your e-commerce journey, and also just get a feel for what everyone's knowledge is at this point. Also, during the webinar, you can download our handouts in the handout section of your GoToWebinar panel. We have assets from our 10-part educational series on e-commerce that we've done the past few months, as well as the presentation deck. With that said, we're thrilled that you've taken some time out of your busy day to be with us on this webinar. SWK is here to help you fulfill your vision of a smarter and easier way to run your business by providing you with the tools, support, software, and industry knowledge whenever you need it. So whether you're here to explore new solutions or just here to learn, don't hesitate to ask any questions you have while the experts are present. And as a quick reminder, SWK is constantly sharing important updates and software tips and tricks on our social media channels. Check us out and give us a follow on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube so you don't miss out. Okay, that's enough from me. Let's hand it over to Seth and Josh for the main event.
Thanks, Courtney. So just a quick agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about your online presence, which often is overlooked. Get into building, and we'll talk about SEO in there a little bit. Talk about building traffic and sales, as well as the omni-channel opportunity. We'll talk a little bit about sales tax and point of sale, and then ERP and e-commerce. Kind of wrap up talking about strategy over tactics, which is always a fun conversation. So right away, we're going to hit you with the poll here, just so we can get to know a little bit more about how you identify as a business. Or do you consider yourself a manufacturer, wholesaler, retailer, or other? I know a lot of folks are kind of a mixture of those, so it's okay if that's the case. How do you identify?
Yes, and thank you for everyone for answering so far. We're going to leave it open for a couple more seconds. Awesome. So it looks like, we're a bit across the board here. We've got a lot of manufacturers, maybe not some wholesalers on today, or you guys are in the silent section of the audience. Some retailers and some people that are out, a little bit of both, or, other. And we're also going to ask another quick poll. So, which best describes your current online presence? Do you have no online presence? Do you have products listed but no option to actually order online? Are you on an older e-commerce site, a modern site, or, are you almost, maybe an e-commerce master out there with multiple sites selling on various marketplaces, doing a little bit of everything?
Thank you for
Seth, it looks like a good, yeah, it looks like we're getting a good group across the board here.
Great.
Okay, guys, we're going to leave this open for just a couple more seconds. So if you're still deciding. Okay, and this is truly across the board. We've got, someone in every category here. So I'm glad to know we've got all different, expertise levels out there.
Great. Well, again, thank you guys for doing that. So let's get into it here. So I want to start by talking about your online presence, right? As we talk about driving traffic to your site, how do you present, when people look for you or looking for your products, services? So I'd like to do something. If everybody would, I'm sure you got another tab, or maybe you have 3 monitors. Open up a Google search window and just search for your company's name. You can search for your company's name. You can search for maybe someone in your C-suite, or a key person, yourself. You can search for a product, but let's do a Google search together and kind of see what we see there. So when I search for Acumatica here, right? A couple key points to point out. I'm sure most of you are familiar with having these sponsored results up here, right? But what can happen a lot is that you can, and maybe some of you are seeing your competitors listed there, right? Competitors can bid on your company name, right, to advertise. And so you want to make sure that you are protecting those spaces. And so when you advertise on your own keywords, right, obviously down below Acumatica is showing up number one organically, right? They're the authority on themselves. But you want to make sure that you're blocking out your competitors from advertising on your keywords, right? Because they're right there at the top, and maybe you're losing some business. Another area to point out is this. On the right here, we have the Google featured snippet, right? So if we look on the right here, right, we can see that Acumatica or Google has Acumatica kind of tagged. They kind of are a known quantity. And so as far as establishing our company in the world and your presence, making sure that we have a Google featured snippet is an important thing, I believe. And one of the ways you can do that is by using Wikipedia. Google looks at different things like that. They look at different directories and indexes. So, it may be worth your while to, create a Wikipedia page or work with a firm to kind of help you with that. If I look at some other, other search results pages, I've got, Acumatica Retail Commerce Edition. You can see that, SWK, we're advertising there. And we're able to put in some site links. So there's some different things you can do with search ads. Of course, adding videos is helpful there, but nobody's actually got the featured snippet on that. When I search myself, maybe some of you searched yourself, this is not me, if you can tell. It's an American soccer player who played left midfielder at Penn State, but he did a good job, got himself in Wikipedia, right? And I guess he got drafted by the Red Bulls as well, the New York Red Bulls. Good job. But so I'm not doing a good job here, right? People look for me, they're going to find this guy, right? Maybe he's stealing business from me. And so another thing I want to point out, in addition to making sure that we're protecting those Google Ads featured snippet, from a design perspective, a lot of times our websites can kind of go overlooked, right? They naturally get older and older over time. At SWK actually recently did a nice a redesign, which you can see here, optimized for mobile, things like that. But a couple of things I want to point out as we start to talk about SEO and keywords is, historically, what I've seen is people tend to underutilize the navigation on their website, right? So you can see that SWK has accounting and ERP software up there, managed cloud services, right? These are important keywords for us. But a lot of times what you'll see is, and maybe you have this on your site, there might be a link to home, right? So a lot of people out there are ranking for the word home, which isn't really helpful necessarily. And or they're listing products or services, right? I can't tell you how many people have products or services in the header, and that's what they're trying to rank for essentially, right? So what you can do is you can make it more specific, right? What are the nature of your products or services, right? Be more specific. So I've worked with a HR, a third-party HR services firm. They had services listed there. I said, hey, let's put HR services in the navigation, and then that's going to be on every single page, and it's a good indication to Google that that's important to you. Additionally, in the subnav, we have the actual softwares that we represent. So consider the navigation of your site when you're in the categories and subcategories as far as getting keywords in there. Another thing I wanted to point out is when you look at your online presence, your search results, make sure that this page title is what you want it to be, right? The page title on your homepage is the most important place to put keywords, right? Additionally, the meta description, is that what you want it to be? These site links, right? This isn't the sponsored ad anymore. This is natural, but these site links, you can tell Google if you don't want them to list. If they're using certain site links and you don't want those, you can say, exclude those. So these are all kind of important things as you kind of step back and say, when you Google us, like, are people seeing this? And I know a lot of us get like good referral business, or maybe your B2B companies, but I think it's important to consider, if somebody was referred to you and they came and Googled you and came to your website, what would they think? Is this somebody they want to do business with? We're talking a lot about retail and commerce today. If you're trying to engage an influencer and they're going to come to your site, would they want to do business with you? So these are kind of just all good, important things to consider. And then another kind of gotcha I've seen a lot is if you scroll down to the footer of your site, double check your copyright there, right? We've got 2023, we just did that update, but I've seen sites where it says like 2015, 2017. It's not a good thing to do. And there's ways you can just have that automatically refreshed to the current year as well. All right, so let's keep going here. We talked about design. I think it's important too as you're considering design. A lot of times people try to use templates or do it themselves, but I really highly recommend working with an agency or design firm who can, understand your values, even create a brand guide. What are your fonts? What are your colors? What's most important to you? Why do people do business with you? And then they can really imbue that into your design, right? It's important. Okay, promise we'll go through these slides a bit faster here. So some additional considerations with SEO. We talked about having things in the navigation. Also, Google kind of looks at how often keywords are repeated throughout your site. So you want to make sure that you're including those keywords that are most important to you over and over again. They also look at internal links, right? Are you linking to anything else on your site when you mention those keywords that are important to you? I think it's also important to have a list of keywords and be reporting on those and tracking which ones are actually converting. We might think that certain ones convert, but maybe they don't. We might get good click-through rates on our ads, but they don't convert, right? We need to know these metrics, and in the modern day with Google Analytics 4 and so on, you really can have all that information at your fingertips. And of course, for e-commerce perspective, we should be tracking conversions. Email, we should know if people are purchasing from those emails and things like that. And then the other thing I really always highly recommend considering is, when you go to when somebody puts a query into Google, Google's really evaluating who is the authority on that, right? So if it's again, Acumatica Retail Commerce Edition, who is the authority on that? Certainly Acumatica is going to be there, but who else? And so putting the content the keywords and the content in a healthy, redundant way, but not, of course, we're avoiding black hat practices, which Google's good at blocking and have kind of shut down. So we're not stuffing, but we're being kind of having this healthy redundancy. But also consider what kind of resources or tools you can list on your site, right? Can you have a glossary on your site of like key terms, right? And with the advent of, AI has officially arrived with ChatGPT, right? It wouldn't be a webinar without mentioning AI. But you can use, one of the use cases for ChatGPT is, hey, give me a definition of this keyword phrase, right? Take that content and then modify it or riff off of it, right? Historically, it's also really been important to get links back to your site. But it's also, as has gone on, Google also looks at now like who you're linking to, right? You're kind of curating who you link to, and so it's not just about who's linking to you and the internal links you have on your site and which keywords you're using to link to other pages, but what are you? If you're writing a nice article, like what are you linking to, right? You can link to, if that source is trusted or not. And then I think everybody knows that content is really king with Google, and they want to know you're alive and well, posting new content. I really think it's important to try to create proprietary content if you can. Is there certain things you guys know? You have all this internal expertise. Is there anything you can get into the website that other people wouldn't have, right? Google does not like duplicate content, so we don't just want to borrow from other people. And even if we're using ChatGPT, we want to modify it and make it our own. And then as you're building this content, whether it could even be doing a survey, right, with your customers or internally or with your partners, when you publish that content, you really want to advertise it too, right? And that's a great case for social media, right? We can share the content, try to get people to link back to it. The more proprietary it is, the more interesting it's going to be to third-party publications and others. People, is it something that people might bookmark and and want to have access to it in the future, right? So the more valuable you can make it, and that's really, folks like HubSpot have really kind of gone after this inbound marketing, right? We want to create valuable content, and then we want to push it out there, advertise it, and get folks to come to our site. And then I think another really highly underutilized, at least not in, I think people tend not to think about in terms of SEO, but engaging with a PR firm, I think, can really be worth its weight in gold. And we talked about having significant links to your site, right? And back in the day, there used to be something called PageRank, which is actually named after Larry Page. And they used to say, this page has a rank of 2, this page has a rank of 4. But getting links from higher numbered pages really contributed quite a bit to the ranking of your site, right? So that those scores are not there anymore. You can't see that, but it's still there, kind of under the hood, right? So if you can, working with the PR agency, especially if you have something coming up or you have something noteworthy, or even if there's maybe an acquisition or a new product line. Working with a PR agency can be, if they can get you in Wall Street Journal, Fast Company Magazine, something like that, and they're linking to your site, that's going to be huge in terms of SEO versus maybe your mother-in-law's site linking to your website. All right. So then in terms of traffic and sales, right? If we create a store, right? If a tree falls in the forest, nobody's there to hear it. Did it, it really happen? So, when you create a store, Google is going to index it, right? If we do things right, they'll index it better. There's going to be some free traffic, but how are we getting people to come to our site, right? We really need to kind of be mindful of that, and that's where the content can be helpful. But using digital marketing strategies, we can really put our store on kind of the busiest intersections, right? You can put it on Saks, or on Fifth Avenue in New York City, right? And so we want to be doing SEO. We want to be doing search engine marketing, at least to protect our branded keywords, but most likely doing much more than that. You want to have a good email marketing strategy, which can work right hand in hand with your content strategy, right? We're going to create, one article a week or one article a month, and then we're going to email folks, and we're going to include a link to that in addition to advertising that content. SMS marketing is becoming more popular, especially with Twilio. And maybe use it for customer support, or maybe certain folks prefer text, or maybe you have folks out in the field and they would respond well to text messages. And then of course social media marketing. Again, depending on the types of products you have, it might depend on which social media platforms you engage with. I'm not sure all of us will be on TikTok, but maybe LinkedIn is the right place. Maybe Facebook versus Instagram, right? And then that leads well into influencer marketing. And there's really a number of really great marketplaces now to engage with influencers. I think in previous years, you kind of had to maybe reach out to them directly, or kind of have someone responsible for that to reach out to people and try to engage them. But both Shopify and BigCommerce have marketplaces where you can say, hey, here's what I want to pay. This is what I need, and they're kind of helping with that exchange of goods and services. And the thing I really like about influencers is that, or affiliates, is that they're going to create content, right? They're going to take pictures, they're going to take videos. They have their whole network that they already kind of engage with, right? They're posting content regularly, which is giving them good exposure. And then so you can engage with those networks, and you can try different ones, see what's most popular. But then they're creating that content, which can be so difficult to create, right? Creating content is the worst. Every business, it always falls to the end of the list because there's always things that take priority, right? So you really have to prioritize the content, and I highly recommend creating a content calendar to help with the execution of that as well. And having working with an agency or having third-party services, they can kind of help keep people on task as well to make sure that happens. So then the last bullet there, marketplaces, right, kind of brings us into the omni-channel opportunity, right? And so as we think in terms of omni-channel, right, I think historically that's included catalogs, even phone orders. There's obviously marketplaces like Amazon, Walmart, eBay. We'll be talking about a little bit more. But I think it's also important to consider having, how you might even utilize multiple websites, right? So some people, we're seeing this more and more. Some of our customers have a direct-to-consumer website, and some have a B2B website, right, which have very different needs. Direct-to-consumer site, you're not going to be allowing people to purchase via PO, right? You don't have multiple users that need to purchase to one company customer necessarily in direct-to-consumer where you're doing B2B. Price lists, right, showing specific pricing or products to folks, right? So you can really, a lot of the shopping carts that tended to be more direct to consumer, like Shopify and BigCommerce, they really have kind of moved upstream and are much more mid market and have more available for B2B functionality. And I think historically there was people tend to utilize a customer portal more, right, where people could log in and place orders to see invoices and so on. But really people are expecting the Amazon experience, right? Amazon kind of leads the way. That's what people come to expect. More and more you have what are called digital native, generations, millennials, Gen Zers who are doing the purchasing for their companies, right? They're more handy online perhaps. And so we need that nice shopping experience and being able to do good recommended products and have it be one page checkout, really be kind of streamlined and everything. But there may be cause for you to have multiple websites if, say, there's particular product lines you want to focus on. I worked with a woman's boutique that did a lot of jeans, but they also had these really nice scarves, European scarves. And while those could coexist on a site together, we could also have a separate website where, again, the navigation, we're getting all those keywords, the content that's being reiterated, or the kind of the theme of the site is those particular keywords, right? And so maybe that sounds overwhelming to you, but in this modern day and age, we really can help to orchestrate that or help the administration of those additional websites. If we can automate it, if we can streamline it, then in addition to the marketplaces, then that can really help us get our products out there, multiple sites, multiple marketplaces, right? We don't have to worry about just having our store that we have to drive all this traffic to necessarily. And so in terms of Amazon, right, over 200, I think this is from 2021, actually, this data, but over 202 million unique visitors per month. Over 80% are open to discovering new products and brands. So you really can't, I don't think you can, I know maybe some of you are like, we tried Amazon, or no, it's just too much. I know it can be difficult to maybe control the pricing of your products as other people might be reselling them and so on. But I think one thing to keep in mind is that you can even advertise on Amazon, even if you don't sell on Amazon, right? Amazon's kind of become the place where people go to start a product search. They're looking for something, they might start there instead of Google, right? More than they did 10 years ago, right? And then additionally, I would say, there are a number of third parties out there that will help you administer, run the Amazon store for you. So there's ones that will do just the advertising. There's ones that will do the whole store for you. So, if that's something if you really want to give it a good try, I'd recommend kind of doing one of those third-party services versus somebody internally having to, learn Amazon and, get all the products set up and everything. I think it can be overwhelming. And I think I've seen people kind of give it like a half-hearted attempt just because people are have a lot of things they're doing. And I don't know that that's really, you want to make sure you have a true test of it to really see if it's worth it or not. But then, of course, we also don't want to be over-reliant on any one marketplace or customer, right, or employee. And there was a recent FTC lawsuit against Amazon, right, saying that maybe they have too much of a stronghold, right, or too controlling of pricing, things like that. So we do recommend, even as we engage with these marketplaces, that we look to other ones as well, right? And so even though Amazon's at over 202 million, right, Walmart Plus is over 120 million unique visits per month, right? More than halfway there. Target has 148 million unique visits per month, right? And there's Target Plus now, right, where you can certain people can get into You can sell your stuff on Target if you can get into their, they're a little bit more curated, but if you can get into there. And then eBay, right? 100 million unique visits per month. I know not everybody's going to necessarily fit for eBay, but I've seen certain customers do a ton of business on there, especially, worked with a customer that sold like John Deere parts, right? Or if you have, aftermarket parts, right? That could be a really, really good place for you. So, but again, I think the question is, you might say, that's great, Seth. You want me to do these marketplaces, right? You want me to have strategies to drive traffic to my site, and you want me to have multiple sites, right? And the question would be kind of how do we streamline the administration of all this, right? We don't want to just, make people quit. We don't want to make people, we may not be able to hire people to do this. And so again, I think third-party services can be helpful, can always kind of turn it off, expand it, can be more elastic. And so Feedonomics, especially in terms of marketplaces, is a really great service that will help you. You might know BigCommerce acquired them, but they do work with more than BigCommerce, or with a number of shopping carts, as you can see there. And they will actually kind of optimize your product feed for each of these marketplaces. And so that you don't have to learn all these different marketplaces and be the experts in them, right? I think of it in terms of, if you're putting in skylights, new skylights or floors in your house, you could give it a go, or you could, trust the experts, and then you don't know all the problems, and you don't have to worry about leaks and things, right? I want the people to do it every day to do this for me. So again, I think it also even gives you maybe more of a fair shake at if this is going to work for us or not. And Feedonomics will actually do an audit for you if you're interested. I also think of this in terms of if any of you are doing EDI, right? Folks like SPS Commerce kind of become that EDI department for you, right? They're going to kind of manage that or set up new trading partners and things like that. Similarly, Feedonomics kind of be like your product feed department. And then they also have a relationship with Target Plus, kind of access to invite only. So again, not everybody's going to fit in that, but certain retailers will. So that could be a way to kind of open up another marketplace for you too. All right, and then in terms of talking about sales tax and point of sale, right? Sales tax has become, back in the day, you really only had to take sales tax if you were selling something direct to consumer, and you were selling something within the same state that you were in, right? If it's, I grew up in Massachusetts, right? We had a store. If somebody bought in Massachusetts, we had to take sales tax. Otherwise, we didn't have to worry about it, right? But then some of you may be familiar with, there was this famous case, North Dakota versus Wayfair, and they said to Wayfair, even though you don't have a physical nexus here, you really have an economic nexus here, and so you need to pay sales tax, right? And so then other states have followed suit, right? And so, knowing if you have economic nexus in Montana or Louisiana, or, what the different rules are, obviously becomes pretty complicated. State governments, right? Who wants to know all 50 of them, right? Also, there's county tax, right? And city tax. So I think one of the examples they tend to mention is, or that Avalara tends to mention is, a sliced bagel in Brooklyn is taxed differently than a whole bagel, because there was some labor involved in cutting that, and probably workers' comp and cutting their hand, going to the ER. So, who your company is going to keep track of that? Nobody is. We also, was talking to a company recently. They went from having nexus in 2 states to nexus in 20 states within just a few years, right? And so, and Avalara helps them to know that. Additionally, right, capturing your tax exempt forms from certain customers that are tax exempt, they can help with that and everything. And then as we're going to be talking more about ERP here, and it's important that we're calculating the same sales tax in the shopping cart that we are in the accounting or ERP system, right, on sales orders and invoices, as we are on the e-commerce orders. And what I've seen, some people haven't had this experience. For some people, it's like the bane of their existence. You can have rounding issues, right? So one system, even if you're using the same, say, I have a tax code with Avalara, one system is truncating the 4 decimal places, another one's rounding. You end up with a penny variance, and then someone in AR accounting's got to write off or deal with these variances, and it can be annoying, especially if you have a credit card payments coming in on orders and things like that. But so we'll look at how Acumatica has kind of helped us help solve for that and kind of listen to their customers. But really, as you start smaller, you can probably manage sales tax on your own, especially if it's just one state or one locale. But as you get bigger, you really need kind of a third party service to help manage that. And Avalara is the best. All right. So without further ado, I want to pull in Josh Fisher here from Acumatica. He's going to talk to us a little bit more about point of sale, right? In terms of omnichannel, right? We can have our different marketplace, we can have our stores, but then we also still have might have a physical store as well that we need to manage.
Great, thank you, Seth. That's right. Let's talk about point of sale for a second. I want to start by saying that everything that Seth has been talking about up to this point may be very familiar information for those of you that sell to consumers. The act of selling to consumers online, it's been a interesting game for the last 2 decades, learning how to sell products online and how to capture the attention of consumers and so on. But honestly, everything that Seth is talking about is becoming more and more important for even B2B businesses. What I see is that the consumers basically have become accustomed to using this new web technology to find and purchase the products that they're looking for. And those consumers typically have a day job. And when they go to their day job, it's not unusual for them to be tasked with buying products for work. It could be that they're buying paper towels for, the office kitchen. It could be that they're buying a new laser cutter for their manufacturing plant. But what's interesting is that these buyers, especially the younger buyers, are using the same tactics to find products that they use in their personal lives as a consumer. Today, if my friends were inviting me on a camping trip and I knew I needed new hiking boots, the first thing I would do is pull my phone out of my pocket and I would open a browser and search best hiking boots 2023. And I would get a lot of results. I would do my own personal research. I would look at the brands that I trust and am familiar with. And eventually I would find hiking boots and I would likely place that order online. Maybe I would find where the boots are locally so I could go to a store and try them on. But that same process can be used for buying anything. And especially in the last 2 years, we've seen more manufacturers, especially manufacturers, adopting these tactics to reach their audience more than ever before. Additionally, in the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of manufacturers open up showrooms where they engage with their buyers in person. And when they open a showroom, imagine a B2B manufacturer that produces tile, for instance. Typically, those kinds of organizations are selling to other businesses that are working in the construction field. But if you have a showroom and you're selling tile, why not open it up to consumers as well? So these manufacturers are now going direct to consumer. And there's definitely a gray area where we're seeing these businesses blend between retail and manufacturing in that particular example. So with Acumatica, we understand that having a point of sale system is going to be important not just to consumer focused retailers, but it's really becoming important to businesses of all types. And one of our principles at Acumatica is to focus our energy on the ERP itself. We want to make the ERP as modern and as intuitive and as feature rich as possible for helping you manage and automate your back office. And instead of building out solutions like point of sale or e-commerce, our approach has been to partner with and integrate to the best in breed solutions in the market. When it comes to point of sale, there's a lot that you have to think about. everything from loyalty points to gift cards, returns and exchanges. These are a lot of common in-store experiences that you would expect. And we know that the ERP needs to keep record of this information. You're going to use it for your accounting and auditing and so on. But from our perspective, our energy is best put into making sure that the integrations are as solid as possible, whether we're the ones building the integration or we have tech partners that build the integrations. In some cases, it's even our partners like SWK building integrations specifically for merchants. So you see this list of logos here. This is just a sample of different POS solutions that have been integrated with Acumatica. Some of these are global brands. Everybody's familiar with Shopify, and Lightspeed is definitely gaining traction. And we also have point of sale systems that are specific to the Acumatica community, like Fusion POS. That system is built specifically for Acumatica and maybe one or two other ERPs. One Retail is built specifically for Acumatica. We've been partnered with One Retail for years now, and their solution was built with Acumatica in mind. When we meet retailers, helping them choose a POS, it's a very unique experience. It's very much based on what your specific needs are. So if you're looking for not only a new ERP, but you're also looking for POS, the best thing to do is to build a relationship with SWK and help them understand what your needs are, and then they can help you narrow down the best point of sale systems. And because we have relationships with all these companies, it's easy for us to get on the phone together and talk through your needs. Oh yeah, Courtney.
Yes.
I think we got another program.
Yep. Before we go into ERP and e-commerce, we're going to run two more quick polls. So first, after we've talked about omnichannel and the omnichannel opportunity, we'd like to know, where do you intend to sell your products, or where are you currently selling your products? Is that e-commerce site? Is it in a marketplace like Amazon, in store? Is it a mix of some of those or all of the above? And once again, it's looking, a lot of you, have that e-commerce site, which is great. And then, it's a bit across the board again, some on marketplaces, some doing everything. Awesome. So if you haven't got your response, we're about to close out this poll.
Thanks for your responses, everybody.
Yeah, so you can see there, we've got a lot on e-commerce. A bit of people doing everywhere, everything, and then some of the mixture of the above. And for those of you that like polls, we're going to run one more quick poll. So, as we go into talking about ERP and e-commerce, what's the biggest challenge you're facing in your e-commerce practice right now? Is it driving traffic and conversions like Seth talked about earlier? Is it the e-commerce and ERP integration piece we're about to go into? Is it the bandwidth of your staff to handle all the different things that Seth brought up earlier when we talked about best practices? Or, is it that data, you checking the GA4, getting access to all your data like you would in your ERP? Thank you for everyone who's answered so far. Just a couple more seconds. We're going to close this one out and dive into ERP and e-commerce. Great. And once again, guys, you can see it, we're across the board, but a lot of people are really struggling with that ERP and e-commerce integration piece and the traffic and conversions.
That's great. Okay, so just to touch on those two particular topics. When it comes to ERP and e-commerce integrations, that is a specific challenge that I've been focused on since 2012. Before 2012, I owned a digital agency, and my team would build e-commerce sites and websites for national brands of all kinds. Really got interested in e-commerce at that time. And then I was at a networking event, and I met the owner of a small ERP company, a small open source ERP company. Really interesting conversation. And he kind of tipped me off to the fact that integrating ERP and e-commerce was a major problem. And from my perspective, it was clear that e-commerce was the future of every business. It didn't matter if you were selling those CNC laser cutters or if you were selling women's jeans, or doesn't matter. Whatever, if you are an organization that sells products, at some point in your future, you have to be using these modern tools in order to reach your audience and sell your goods. And the fact that there weren't strong tools for integrating ERP and e-commerce was going to become a major problem, because as businesses continue to grow, they become more complex. And it's just ridiculous to imagine businesses entering orders that are coming in from the website manually into the ERP. Really, the two systems have to function as one large unified system. The integration has to be so thorough that, number one, your customers have an outstanding experience when they're buying from you, but also your back office team has a great experience when they're fulfilling orders, and there aren't problems going from one to the other. If you think about all businesses that sell products, they really have two areas of the organization that require a lot of focus. And I break it down here with the front office and the back office. You know, a great analogy is, imagine going to a restaurant. When you go into the restaurant, you as the customer, you absorb the aesthetics of the restaurant. You're greeted by a host. You know, typically your server is really pleasant and they help you understand the menu. That's your front office experience. That's the customer experience, the face of the organization. But once you put your order in, the server then takes that order back to the kitchen, and there's an entire team of people that are delivering on the promise that that front office experience is making for you. In the back of the house, you have the actual kitchen that's preparing the food. You have the inventory. There's the operations. You have people that focus on making sure that there's the right amount of inventory in the kitchen so that they can continue to fill those promises. Every organization that sells products has that same structure of front office and back office. Obviously, as an ERP company, our primary focus is the back office operations. We want to help you make your back office run in as efficient manner as possible. We want to automate everything that we can when we can. But recognizing that the front office is so critical to all of these businesses, we know that everything that Seth has been talking about up to this point is going to become as critical to you, if it's not already, as the back office aspects. So what we've done is, since 2019, we've partnered with BigCommerce. BigCommerce is a SaaS e-commerce platform. They have tens of thousands of customers. They serve customers around the world. Very thorough, intuitive system. And we've built a native integration to BigCommerce. And when I say a native integration, what that means is that we have Acumatica resources, a team of dozens of people that solely focus on getting data back and forth between those systems. And we call this a commerce-enabled ERP. So the ERP itself is going to help you with inventory management, warehouse management, customer management, all your finances. It's where you do all your purchasing and so on. But we're always considerate of what's happening in that front office. So for instance, if you're managing your inventory inside the ERP, you have all your product information there, your titles and descriptions and your photos. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to push that information out to the e-commerce platform so that your customers can gain as much information as possible. They can see the inventory levels. For instance, you can actually, with our solution, you can control the customer experience based on inventory levels. If your inventory levels are getting low, you can update that page on the BigCommerce site to say, low stock, order now. If you have a product that you know you're no longer going to be ordering, as soon as this runs out of stock, we're not going to sell this product any longer. You can actually configure Acumatica to tell BigCommerce, when you sell the last item, take this page off the site. And that's what we mean by commerce-enabled ERP. We're building this operations system to help you with the front office as much as possible. Thanks, Seth. Really, we've done the same thing with Avalara too. So, I talked about BigCommerce and our native integration to BigCommerce, but actually our team has built a native integration with Avalara as well. We partner with and are in regular communications with these teams. It's not like these are just logos that we want to have on our website. I personally have a Slack channel where I have access to the whole BigCommerce team. I can reach out to them at any time. We have other teams with the same level of access to Avalara. And having that native integration is critical, because if you're relying on a third-party system, it's not to say that third-party systems can't get the job done. They certainly can. But the third-party systems like an iPaaS system, number one, they're not going to come with out-of-the-box features. There's going to be a lot of setup that has to happen based on your specific needs. But additionally, when there's a challenge that you run into, or maybe BigCommerce releases a new feature and you want to use that feature, there's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through to make that happen. In our case, we know BigCommerce's roadmap before the public does, right? So we're in a position where we're preparing for features that BigCommerce is going to release next year. We're preparing for them now. And that puts you in an advantage when you use Acumatica and BigCommerce together. Same thing can be said about Avalara. And as I've mentioned before, we focus on all areas of commerce. It's not just e-commerce. We're also thinking about point of sale and even B2B. And what this leads to is a lot of out-of-the-box features. So we spend time talking to all of our customers. Our best information comes from customers. And when customers we're hearing the same trends from customers about what their needs are, that helps us define the roadmap. And as you can see here, this list of out-of-the-box features, this is a fraction of what is included with our connector. But these are all the features that you would expect, selling products with variants. And in the B2B case, you need to be able to take payment in many different ways. Definitely customers need flexible shipping options. So thinking about all of these different challenges that a merchant faces inside the ERP and outside the ERP has been really important to us for years.
Yeah, and Josh, I just want to pop on and kind of show some of what we're talking about. So obviously we don't have time for kind of a full demo of Acumatica and these native integrations. Be happy to do that in another call. But just to kind of, I guess, put a visual to what we're talking about. Inside of Acumatica, we're in a browser. It's a cloud system, right? It's not something that runs locally. It's in the browser. It's in the cloud. But you can have your finance system, right? Your GL, your AR, AP, banking, cash. You can have your order management. You can have your inventory control, right? And purchasing, all that. And then you can also have these native connections to BigCommerce, to Shopify, to Amazon. And as Josh is saying, without needing a third party, we can configure, once we put in the API credentials to our BigCommerce store, we can then configure how the data flows, right? Certain things can be real time. Acumatica was designed to be in the cloud, so it's got really great APIs, uses webhooks to kind of push things over really quickly, right? We put in those credentials, hit test connection, and we're on our way. And then each of these kind of flows of data, we can do some field mapping. There is a default mapping that, as Josh was saying, they're going to kind of say, this is what we think makes the most sense, so that you don't have to build it from scratch, but then you can modify or tweak it or tailor it from there. You can even put in rules in there to say, we had a customer that sells on, uses FedEx quite a bit and doesn't want to require customers to put in a phone number when they're checking out, because, right, minimize the data needed, can increase conversion rates. But if customers don't put in a phone number, we need a phone number on the shipment, right? So we said, if there's a phone number, use it. Otherwise, use the customer service line, right? And there's all kinds of rules, we can do. But each of the main thing to keep in mind is that from within our ERP, right, this is just configuration that we are dealing with, right? It's not custom development. It's not outside the system. It's all inside the ERP. We can specify which is going to be our guest customer, right? From an inventory perspective, do we want to use all the inventory in all of our warehouses or just particular ones, right? Maybe we segregate inventory um, for a particular shopping cart, or maybe we wanted to consider those two locations, but not the third and the fourth. Maybe just certain locations within the warehouse, right? Do we want to be included in the stock levels? And then, as Josh was saying, what do we do in quantity? The quantity is unavailable. Do we put it to back order? Do we put it out of stock? Things like that. And these are the default settings of the store, but then you can specify that at the item level. So the item master is going to have these e-commerce features where we can specify the page title, the image slug, the images and videos, right? That could be links or attached to the item master in here. Order settings wise, when the order comes in, right, we're going to create a sales order in Acumatica. So we can have that be a different type, so we know which are web orders versus regular orders. From a taxes perspective, we can, as we mentioned, right, we can sync directly to Avalara, and we're using those Avatax codes. And then I mentioned it earlier, this kind of rounding. I don't know if anybody relates to this rounding issue of the taxes, but Acumatica does a good job of listening to their customers. And they heard this pain point. And so what they did is they added a feature to the sales order type to say, hey, I already calculated sales tax elsewhere. Don't worry about it. You don't have to recalculate. I already did it. It's good. And so now you can enable that for your particular web order or sales order type. And now you won't have to deal with that penny variance, right? So to me, it's a sign of a good publisher listens to their people, give the power to the people, give them what they want, can specify an earliest order date. We can manage returns, right, as they come from BigCommerce into the system, if you want to allow that, or maybe it's more of an RMA process and they're going to fill out an order form. And then we're going to sync the payments as they come into your particular ERP payment methods and cash accounts and so on. And then we can map the shipping, right? So as customers choose, expedited or 2-day, what do we want to map that to in the ERP? How are we going to actually ship that, right? If we have a free shipping option, are we going to use UPS ground? Or are we going to use USPS first class, right? We can kind of populate that to help streamline the creation of shipments and stuff. So there's a lot to show in here. Typically, ERP demos take at least 2 hours, if not, much more than that. But I did just want to kind of give you a flare of feeling for how you can, as we're talking about managing, omnichannel, we could have one item master in here, and then we're pushing that to the different marketplaces, to our B2C side and B2B side, or multiple B2C sites. And then if we change things, right, we can have it pushed to all places. Similarly with inventory, right, if our stock levels change because orders were placed in different marketplaces, we can have that be real time and update everywhere, so we're not selling stuff we don't have. Right, so there's a lot of things you can do in here to automate things so that it doesn't have a terrible burden on your staff, right? And so then it's, Acumatica is paying for itself and reducing the amount of employees that you need to kind of manage these things, perhaps. All right, so that's my very light demo for today. Again, be happy to show any of you guys more of this, but I do want to leave some time for Q&A, and I want to be respectful of your time today as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, yes, as we go into, like Seth said, we're going to go into Q&A. Do you want to take a second to speak to the strategy?
Yeah.
Go right
So I think there's a danger. I don't know if anybody's read the Art of War or whatever, but there can be a tendency to kind of just let's try things. We need to get sales. Let's just try that. Let's try Amazon for a month. Let's try that. Let's try podcasts, right? And I think the danger is that any of those things might not they're not kind of well supported with the overall strategy, right? So we want to have an overall game plan. It's well thought out. Plans fail for lack of counsel, right? Get everybody kind of buy in on that. And then we can have tactics that are executing on those strategies, but we ensure we have all the reporting we need. We give it a fair shake. Maybe we're using a third-party agency to really try something. But I really think it's important to have that strategy, have that game plan the work the plan, all that stuff. And then again, I think it's important you got to beat your competition, right? You got to compete online. You want to be number one on Google, right? You gotta beat your competition. You gotta be the authority, create that content, win, in your area. And then I also think it's really important to, within your strategy, try new advertising channels, marketplaces. Google search ads are pretty expensive these days, right? Because people have been doing it for so long. So, try influencers. It's not as expensive now as it will be in 5 or 10 years. And again, yeah, I recommend using specialists as much as you can.
Awesome. Thank you, Seth, and
Yeah.
thank you, Josh. As we go into Q&A, we're going to run a final poll, which some of you will love and some of you will hate. So get your questions in now. And in the meantime, we just want to know, what are your next steps? Do you want to immediately get started with the modern e-commerce site? Do you want to see a fuller demo besides that short version we just saw from Seth? Would you like some pricing to review so you can budget for next year? Or are you just here to learn a little bit more about how to be an e-commerce master? And in the meantime, thank you for those of you that have been putting your questions in. We are going to dive right in. So Seth and Josh, the first question I have for you is, does Acumatica support both B2C and B2B via BigCommerce?
Yes.
Yes,
Quick
in a
answer
word,
is yes.
yes. Again, there's certain requirements, different payment method types, having multiple users purchase to one company. And sometimes it'll be how salespeople are engaged can be kind of a big thing there. But yeah, certainly we can, Acumatica can support either variation of, the BigCommerce or Shopify site. Shopify just came out with a B2B edition, which is exciting. BigCommerce has its B2B edition, and then there's also a number of other B2B platforms out there.
Awesome. The next question is, do you have any thoughts or agree with small companies migrating towards TikTok as a shopping platform for consumers as opposed to Amazon?
I mean, I would say, it's worth trying things. I come from a mind of a seven-legged stool never falls over. So I don't think you necessarily should just abandon one and go to the other. I think try it, test it, but I don't think you're going to get away from Amazon unless you really want to, or sometimes people just get fed up with lack of control there. But yeah, try it. It's probably less expensive than it'll ever be. So
Yeah, less
Awesome.
competition right now too.
Great. I think that's kind of the message of this webinar, is give everything a try. And like we said, we want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I think we're going to do one more question, and then you can always reach us at info@swktech.com if you have more questions that were not answered during this webinar. But just our last question, for the products you talked about today, are there limits to how many products, customers, or any other entities that can be involved there?
There's no limitations from an Acumatica perspective. All SaaS e-commerce solutions have some limitations. Like for instance, there might be a limitation to the number of variants that you can have on a product with variants. But that information is available on the most e-commerce platforms websites. You can look for e-commerce name limitations, and you should be able to find information about that. But from an Acumatica perspective, the answer is no.
Great. Thank you, Josh. And so, with that, like I said, if you have any additional questions, you can reach out to us at info@swktech.com. And we want to thank everyone for being with us today. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Seth. We hope you found this webinar useful. And if you'd like some more information, reach out. We're here to help, and hope you have a great, wonderful rest of your day, and happy holidays.
Yeah. Take care. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.